Hello, this is the Connect team. We've just launched 18 new shoe lasts for adult Chloe Avatar's shoe designs. These shoe lasts are suitable for both male and female adults and come in 3 toe types: round, square, and stiletto. They are categorized into 2 height types, one for low shoes like sneakers and another for high shoes like boots. Additionally, we offer lasts specifically for creating women's heels, available in 3 toe types and 2 height variations. Please check the description for the link to obtain the shoe lasts. Now, let's learn how to create sneakers and heels using these newly released shoe lasts. Let's open the women's flat shoe last round file purchased from Connect. When opening a file, you can access it directly from the My Item menu in the Connect and Chloe of Chloe's library window, or if you have downloaded it locally, you can unzip the file and then drag and drop it into Chloe. The locally downloaded shoe last zip file provides 2 files, the shoe last AVT file and a project containing both the shoe last AVT and the insole pattern. To use the project file, you must unzip the downloaded file and then use the ZPRJ file located inside the folder. To efficiently work with the shoe project, it's best to use the ZPRJ file that includes the insole pattern. We will now open this ZPRJ file by dragging and dropping it into Chloe. Once you open the file, the 3D window will automatically load both the right and left lasts. These lasts provide pre-marked 3D pen lines along the center and edges by default. This default setup helps streamline the design process, making it more convenient. Additionally, an insole pattern that connects the upper and the outsole is provided to efficiently reduce the steps in the shoe creation process. Before starting to create the shoes, if you are making a symmetrical pair of shoes, you only need to work on one side. In this tutorial, we will design or create the symmetrical sneakers utilizing the right shoe last. For easier view control, we will delete the left insole pattern and set the transparency of the left shoe last to 0 to hide it. To create sneakers, we will use the 3D pen tool along with the flatten feature. Let's start by selecting the 3D pen tool and drawing design lines on the shoe last. Select the 3D pen avatar tool. This tool functions similarly to the pattern creation tool. By clicking the left mouse button on the avatar, you can create points and draw lines by connecting these points. Simply click to create segment points. If you want to create curve points, hold down the Control key while clicking the left mouse button. To finish the line, double-click on the last point. To create a pattern using the flatten feature, the lines drawn with a 3D pen must touch each other without gaps. Therefore, when finishing a line, please double-click on the existing line. After drawing the lines with the 3D pen, you can fine-tune them using the Edit 3D Pen Avatar tool. Adjust the sneaker design lines by moving the existing points to clean up the design. If you need more points for detailed adjustments, right-click at the desired location to add either a segment or curve point. Once all sneaker design lines are drawn, we will use the flatten feature to convert them into patterns. When you turn them into patterns, the lines you've drawn will become seam lines. If you do not want seam lines on the existing center lines, delete them using the Edit 3D Pen Avatar tool before flattening. Press and hold the 3D Pen Avatar tool to select the Flatten tool. When you move to the shoe last with design lines, you can see the areas based on the lines become active. Select all the areas you want to convert into patterns and press Enter to create the patterns. It is recommended to select all the areas at once and press Enter, as this automatically sews the seam lines together, making the process more efficient. Once the sneaker patterns have been created, organize their position within the pattern window for easier editing. When organizing, it is helpful to arrange the sewn line segments to face each other, which makes work easier. You can easily find the facing line segments using the picking point feature in the 3D window. After organizing the patterns, lower the pattern's particle distance value to 3 mm to smooth out the shape of the sneakers. Then apply strengthen, connect the sewing lines with the insole pattern, and run the simulation. When patterns are created using the flatten feature, they are made based on the lines generated along the surface of the avatar in the 3D window, so the lines of the patterns in the 2D window might not be neat. If you desire cleaner lines, please use the edit tools in the pattern window to adjust the lines and refine the patterns more precisely. Once the sneaker patterns are organized and finalized, please apply fabrics to the patterns. You can try different fabrics for each part of the pattern to see which ones best suit your design. Let's add the tongue and shoelaces to our sneakers. First, to make the tongue, duplicate the upper pattern and modify it into a tongue pattern. Adjust layer order. To ensure the tongue sits underneath the upper, adjust the layer setting by assigning a negative value, organizing the order of the pattern. This time, let's add shoelace. If you have an existing shoelace, import additional files. Please refer to the video linked in the card for how to make shoelace. Creates a hole that matches the imported shoelace. It would be appropriate to add 2 more shoelace lines to the current sneakers, so let's add them. If you want to add more detail to the sneakers, consider including top stitching as a finishing touch. Once you are satisfied with the design of the sneaker upper, save your progress by saving the project file. Shoes typically have an outsole, and a simple outsole can be created as a pattern in Clo. For designs that are too complex to create with a pattern, please create them as 3D models and add them to Clo. Let's add a simple outsole to this sneaker. We will utilize the existing insole pattern for the outsole. Select the insole pattern and choose Layer Clone Over. Now, you can see that the pattern has been cloned below the existing insole pattern. Select the outsole pattern and enter the desired height for the outsole into both the collision thickness and rendering thickness. If the sides of the pattern are too curved and you want to reduce the curvature, you can either turn off the curved side geometry menu or reduce the curvature value. Once you're satisfied with the shape, apply the desired fabric to the outsole pattern. Once the outsole design is complete, delete both shoe last and upper patterns before the simulation to elevate outsole design above the 3D grid in Clo. Please make sure to save the completed outsole design project previous to the following steps. Then, reload the project file containing the upper design. Use the Add Project menu to specify the y-axis value to match the height of the outsole. This will position the upper and the shoe last correctly above the outsole. Save the current project under a different name to preserve this version of the sneaker design. To fit the sneakers you've worked onto the Clo avatar, you need to adjust the avatar's position relative to the sneakers. The shoe last is completely level with a 3D grid, but since the Clo avatar is slightly elevated for pattern simulation, we will adjust the Clo avatar to be level with the 3D grid. First, we will clear the workspace and open the Clo female avatar. Since we are creating sneakers, we will remove the heels that the avatar is currently wearing. Then, by right-clicking on the avatar in the 3D window and selecting Move Avatar to Ground, the avatar will be positioned right on the 3D grid. We will then save this as the new avatar file, AVT. When making shoes, it's essential to cover them with an invisible dummy to ensure stable simulation of the shoes and clothes. Without a dummy mesh, the clothing pattern can be stuck on the uneven surface of the shoes during the simulation, which makes it difficult to style the outfit to look natural. Let's start by opening the shoe last file to create the dummy. Select and flatten all areas except the insole to ensure the dummy mesh covers the entire shoe, and leave a gap between the shoe last and the dummy mesh for easier wrapping. To create this gap, increase the skin offset value, adjusting it generously based on the thickness of the shoe. For the sneakers we're currently making, which are not made of thick fabric, we will set it to about 13 millimeters and then connect the sewing lines to the insole. Apply strengthen to the pattern and run the simulation. A denser mesh on the dummy helps handle collisions with clothing patterns placed over the shoes more reliably. However, setting it too low can affect the file size of the shoe, so we will moderately reduce the particle distance to about 10 millimeters. Save this as a project file. Then, open the saved sneakers project file and add the dummy project file, making sure to load only the garment in the options window. Delete the insole linked to the dummy pattern and connect the sewing line to the sneaker's outsole. Since the sneakers do not need to be simulated, freeze the entire sneaker pattern, apply strengthen to the dummy pattern, and then simulate it. If any part of the sneaker pattern protrudes beyond the dummy pattern, you can adjust the layer value of the entire dummy pattern before simulation to ensure it covers the sneakers externally. If there is no skin offset value on the shoe last, parts of the dummy pattern may penetrate into the shoe last. Select the shoe last and slightly increase the skin offset to allow the dummy pattern to come to the surface. Once the dummy pattern completely covers the sneakers, please make it invisible by selecting the fabric applied to the dummy pattern and setting the fabric's opacity value to 0. This covers up the process for making shoes in Clo. Let's save the project file again. To set your sneakers work seamlessly with Clo's avatar poses or motion files, you must register them as a Clo accessory file. To register as a Clo accessory file, you must open the Clo default avatar and adjust its position. With your last saved sneakers project open, add the previously ground-aligned Clo avatar. Since it needs to be positioned where the shoe last was, adjust the avatar to a height equivalent to the outsole's height by entering 6 mm on the y-axis. The Clo avatar will be located in the same position as the shoe last, ensuring perfect alignment with the sneakers. After deleting the shoe last, select the entire sneaker pattern and right-click on the selected pattern in the 3D window, then choose Convert to Avatar Accessory. In the Accessory Registration window, set the accessory type to Shoes and Flats. Since the sneakers are entirely made from patterns, select Patterns in the Object field, making sure no patterns are missing. Check the Mirror Creation option to generate the corresponding sneaker for the opposite foot automatically. Confirm the positioning is correct for both feet. If everything is properly aligned and configured, click the Save button to save your sneakers as a Clo accessory file. Let's create an artwork with the sneakers saved as a Clo accessory file. Since we can apply our shoes on the default Clo avatar, we will open up the clothing file we designed using the Mia avatar. The avatar is currently wearing heels, but when we load the saved sneakers ZACS file, it automatically switches to heel down, and you will see the sneakers we designed applied to the avatar. With the sneakers on, all of Clo's pose and motion files are compatible, so when we apply a pose file, you can check how the pose changes with the sneakers on. Using the shoe last in this way opens up numerous options for designing the shoes and enhances the overall completion of the look. After following the above process, you can create your own shoe files and sell them on Connect to generate revenue. Let's learn the file size optimization process that must be followed when selling on Connect. All files should adhere to the appropriate size as guided in the Connect manual. This ensures that shoes purchased by users can be simulated with other files without being excessively heavy, so it's necessary to optimize file size. The Shoe File Selling Manual advises keeping the polygon count under 200,000. Let's check if the current file meets this standard. To check the total polygon count, including top stitches and graphics, first export the entire shoe file as an FBX. Then, re-import it into Clo and click the Everywhere button to view the current polygon count. Since this file contains only one shoe, the polygon count should be below 100,000. However, if it significantly exceeds this count, you may need to reduce the overall polygon count. To adjust the polygon count, you can modify the number of meshes. Adjust the following factors that affect mesh count sequentially and check the polygon count intermittently. Open the project file of the garment file state again. First, change the top stitch type from OBJ to texture. After changing, export it again as FBX and check the total polygon count using the Everywhere feature. If further reduction is needed, delete invisible patterns in the shoes to reduce polygon counts. When the avatar wears the shoes, remove any hidden elements, like the insole pattern or overlapping designs inside the shoe that aren't visible from the outside. If further reduction is necessary, increase the particle distance size for parts of the pattern that don't curve significantly, or increase the overall particle distance size. Gradually adjust the particle distance size to ensure the total polygon count falls below 100,000. Once you've successfully optimized the polygon count, register the optimized file as a CLO accessory, following the same method previously used, and proceed to list the product on Connect. This final step makes your optimized shoe design available for purchase by users worldwide. The last for making the heel can also be purchased for free from the Connect official account, just like the shoe last in the previous video. When opening a file, you can access it directly from the My Item menu in the Connect and CLO of CLO's library window, or if you have downloaded it locally. You can unzip the file and then drag and drop it into CLO. The locally downloaded ShoeLast zip file provides two files, the ShoeLast AVT file, and a project containing both the ShoeLast AVT and the insole pattern. To use the project file, you must unzip the downloaded file and then use the ZPRJ file located inside the folder. To efficiently work with the shoe project, it's best to use the ZPRJ file. That includes the insole pattern. We will now open this ZPRJ file by dragging and dropping it into CLO. Once you open the file, the 3D window will automatically load both the right and left lasts. These lasts provide pre-marked 3D pen lines along the center, edges, and heel guidelines by default. This default setup helps streamline the design process, making it more convenient. In the case of the heel last, an insole pattern that connects the upper and the outsole is provided to efficiently reduce the steps in the shoe creation process. If you are making heels that are symmetrical on both sides before making heels in earnest, you only need to work on one side of the heels. In this tutorial, we will design or create the symmetrical heels utilizing the right heel last. And we are going to use the right shoe last, so we will delete the left insole pattern for easy view control and use the Edit 3D Pen Avatar tool in the 3D toolbar for the heel last. So, we will delete the guide line on the left last and hide it by setting the transparency to 0. To make a heel, we will design it by first creating a pattern using the Flatten tool and then editing the pattern. First, press and hold the 3D Pen Avatar tool and select the Flatten tool. After selecting the left and right sides to be created with Flatten, press Enter to create the patterns. It is recommended to select all the areas at once and press Enter, as this automatically sews the seam lines together, making the process more efficient. To smooth out the generated patterns, lower the particle distance value to 3 mm. After applying Strengthen, connect the sewing lines with the insole pattern. It is best to check the sewing direction with the blue picking point that appears after selecting the pattern before proceeding. After sewing is completed, select the seam lines of the insole pattern and side pattern with the Edit Sewing tool and then set the fold angle value to 90 so that the seam lines can be simulated to perfectly match the angle of the last. After the simulation, select the side patterns and set the pressure value to -70 in the Property Editor window. This will reduce the gap between the last and the side pattern, ensuring that the pattern is properly attached to the last. While the simulation is running, move the pattern and adjust its position to fit the guideline as best as possible. After making and sewing a basic stiletto-shaped pattern is completed, we will add an upper design using cuts in the inner side pattern as shown in the image. First of all, to make the upper's front center smooth, select the Edit Sewing tool and click on the front center seam. And if you delete the 3D seam lines normal map at the bottom of the Property Editor window by either setting the value to 0 or clicking the trash can icon, the relevant part will look smooth. Additionally, to cut the design on the inside side of the heel, select the Internal Polygon/Line tool in the 2D window to create an internal line segment. After creating an internal line segment that touches the outline of the pattern, select the created line segments with the Edit Pattern tool, right-click, select Cut to cut out the pattern, and then delete the cut pattern. Please save your project regularly as you work to prevent the trouble of losing progress in case of an unexpected crash. After the design work is finished, we will proceed to apply the pre-made fabric. To check if the color of the fabric have been well incorporated, right-click the avatar and select Hide Avatar. To hide it, then unstrengthen all selected patterns. Shoes typically have an outsole, and a simple outsole can be created as a pattern in Clo. For designs that are too complex to create with a pattern, please create them as 3D models and add them to Clo. Let's add a simple outsole to this stiletto heel. The outsole will utilize the existing insole pattern. Select the insole pattern and choose Layer Clone Over. Then you can see that the pattern has been cloned below the existing insole pattern. Right-click the cloned pattern you just created to access, remove linked editing, and create an internal line segment at the appropriate position where you want to make the heel. Then right-click and apply Extend/Trim and add point to pattern outline to create points up to the outline. Do Layer Clone Over again. Right-click the newly created pattern and select Remove Linked Editing to disconnect it. In the last created clone pattern, select the inner line segment created for the heel, right-click, cut, and delete the front part of the pattern. This pattern, with only the heel remaining, should be the bottom of the heel. So, first, select all the remaining patterns except for the pattern that will be used for the heel, and then freeze them. Next, use the Edit Sewing tool to delete all the sewing lines in the heel area. Then, run a simulation so that the heel pattern falls naturally to the ground. If it gets stuck due to friction and doesn't come off, you can simply use the gizmo to gently pull it off and continue with the simulation. After turning off the simulation of the pattern that fell to the floor, press 0 on the keyboard to switch to the bottom view and adjust the position by checking whether it falls perpendicular to the back of the shoe. Now, let's create a pillar pattern that will connect the floor and the heel of the heel. Use the Linear Measure Garment tool in the 3D toolbar to roughly measure the height from the floor to the back of the heel. Then, select the pattern lying on the floor and check the pattern perimeter in the Property Editor window. Create a square pattern based on height and perimeter. Position the created pattern using the gizmo as close to the heel as possible. So the square pillar pattern starting from the center of the floor pattern. After creating a point in the center using the Add Point tool, likely create a point in the center of the inner line of the clone insole pattern. Then, check the sewing direction using the blue picking point in the 3D window and sew both the top and bottom. Also, sew the left and right sides of the square pattern together. Lower the particle distance of the pattern to 5 and run simulation. Because the length of the square pillar pattern is long, the simulation is not fitting perfectly. So, after selecting the pattern, set the shrinkage warp value to 60 in the Property Editor window. Then, to create an angle on the inner surface, create an internal line segment and change the angle value to 90 degrees. After confirming the position with the blue picking point and creating an internal line segment, run the simulation. If the position is not correct, move it according to the edge of the floor pattern and set the blue picking point. When the heel sole part is completed, press the number 0 on the keyboard to switch to the bottom view, then select the two bottom patterns in the 3D window, right-click, and flip the side of the fabric using Flip Normal. Likewise, heel shoe types require a dummy pattern for stable simulation with the garment. Essentially, because the heel-toe part is pointed, you could cover it with a dummy pattern. However, if multiple patterns are layered as part of the design, please make sure the entire section is covered with a dummy pattern. Let's try wrapping the entire heel shoe in a dummy, assuming that several design elements are layered. First, select all completed shoe patterns and then position them from where the avatar is located to another location in the 2D window. Then, right-click in the 3D window, deactivate, right-click again to hide it with Hide 3D Pattern, and then use the Flatten function in the 3D toolbar to pattern the floor panel. And when you simulate it, it falls to the floor. Adjust the length of the pattern to make it similar to the front and back length of the heel pose. Once the bottom part is complete, select the side panels starting from the ankle and pattern them. At this step, freeze the floor pattern. Also, modify the pattern by adding a near the apex of the heel so that the side patterns continue to the floor and cover the heel. There is no need to modify the pattern with exact numbers, but you can ensure that it is sufficiently wrapped during simulation. Once the pattern modification is complete, connect the side pattern and bottom pattern with a sewing line, then lower the side panel's particle distance to 10. Then select the surface circumference measure avatar in the 3D toolbar to create a line on the ankle. Press and hold the Edit Measure Avatar tool. Select the Attach to Measure Avatar tool and attach the pattern edge to the ankle line. After strengthen the dummy patterns, simulate them to confirm that the dummy patterns are well wrapped. Then select all dummy patterns and press the Assign toggle key in the Object Browser window to apply them as new fabric and lower the opacity to 50% in the Property Editor window below. Pause the simulation, then select all the hidden shoe patterns in the 2D window. Right-click to see Show 3D Pattern. Freeze the patterns and resume the simulation to check they align properly with the dummy patterns. Finally, hide the dummy patterns by adjusting the fabric opacity to 0. To register and utilize the completed Heels Clo accessory, please refer to the demonstration provided in the sneakers tutorial.